Hello everyone, it is me and I'm back again. So for the last machine deck profile we got about 8k views and it's still going up. I don't know why the community is so infatuated with this deck, but it's a long-running deck that was very popular back in the time and everyone's really liked its aesthetic moving forward. So today I'm going to be giving you a fresh, robust take on MACHINA. I'm keeping it pure. I'm going to keep it relatively budget, so it's relatively budget friendly for all you players out there. And I'll give some side options for whoever needs it moving on. So let's crack on with it. So to start with our boss monster, 2 Citadel. Citadel is fantastic for clearing your opponent's board. It's a quick effect. It's 3000 attack and it allows you to destroy another machine monster you control, target it, and then destroy all of your opponent's monsters on the field with attack equal to or less than the destroyed monster. So if you have Citadel equipped with something like Gear Frame and target itself, you can blow up all of your opponent's monsters and then only the Gear Frame will die. Or if you have something like Dingirsu out, you can protect your own Citadel by detaching material from the Dingirsu instead, so you'll keep your strongest monster out. Then coming in with 3 Air Raider. Air Raider is one of the 2 that can special summon from a various location. During your opponent's turn with this one, it can special summon from your deck. You can special summon Air Raider from your hand by discarding any other MACHINA monster. During your opponent's turn as a quick effect, you can target a machine monster you control and special summon a MACHINA from your deck with a different name and an equal or lower level to that monster, and then you destroy your targeted monster. Of course, if your targeted monster is protected, you won't have to destroy that, and you'll still get the special summon off. Irradiator, 3. This can also special summon itself from the hand by discarding MACHINA. However, you can only use its effect on your turn, and it can only summon out from the graveyard. But again, it's a very good way of extending your combo and making sure you're getting as much board presence as you possibly can on your turn. And then 3 of the new Possess Storage. This is an amazing card because when it's normal or special summoned, if indeed there's not mistiming in this stance, you can target a MACHINA in your graveyard, accept it, and special summon in defense. Its effects are negated, but you can use Possess Storage's other effects to target a spell and trap your opponent controls and another MACHINA you control and return both of them to the hand. So this can help you bait out those extremely, difficult to deal with control decks. Now, brand new from Eternity Code, MACHINA Metal Cruncher. This card is fantastic. It all sort of operates as a 5th or 6th copy of Gear Frame, depending on what your ratios are. You can normal summon MACHINA Metal Cruncher from your hand if you control no face-up cards on your field, and its original attack becomes 1800. If it's normal or special summoned, you can reveal 3 Earth Machine monsters from your deck, and your opponent then gets to randomly pick one of them to add to your hand. You can do duplicates, you can do different ones, and it works for any machine monsters. So if you want to buff the deck up and budget it even higher, you can add some amazing train monsters like Bullet Train, some Infinitrack monsters like Anchor Drill and Harvester as well, to really just make everything more consistent. Now, 3 Megaform. Megaform is a fantastic card because it can summon itself from the graveyard if a MACHINA fortress on your field leaves the field. You banish that MACHINA fortress from your graveyard when it hits the graveyard to bring the Megaform out. But bear in mind, you can only use 1 MACHINA Megaform effect per turn. So you can either use that effect to bring back Megaform from the graveyard, or you can tribute it to special summon any MACHINA monster from your hand or deck. So just bear that in mind. Now, the perfect complement to our Megaform is Fortress. Fortress can summon itself from hand or graveyard by discarding machine monsters from your hand that equal 8 or more. Now there is a slight loophole, and there still is a slight loophole with Fortress. You can still discard itself to summon itself. As long as the condition is met, you'll be able to summon it. Machina Fortress has some quite good controlling effects on it as well. So, if it is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can target a card your opponent controls and destroy that target. Also, before resolving an opponent's monster effect that targets it, you can look at your opponent's hand and then discard one card from their hand. See, this is fantastic going up against various strategies that target your monsters, because it gives you free information and it helps you control the board, as well as make your opponent maybe think twice about targeting your fortress. Now onto the 3 copies of Gear Frame. Now you can alternate your ratios. You can play 3 each of Gear Frame and Metal Cruncher. You can play 2 Gear Frame, 3 Metal Cruncher. I've gone for this ratio because Gear Frame is always live in your hand. It can only resolve its search effect for any Machina monster if you normal summon it, but it also has that amazing secondary equip effect that lets you just equip itself to a Machina monster on your field, and it gives it that layer of protection to from destruction effects. It's also a great 1800 attack beta that can swing over some of the smaller monsters that your opponent may bring out. This is a great strategy going up against things like Dragma, because a lot of their monsters are quite low level and you can really sort of control the board. 3 copies of Scrap Recycler. Now, this card is completely optional. You get it in the Machina structure deck, and by no means do you actually need to play this card in the deck. I just like it because it's an additional way of getting your Citadel into the graveyard, because if I hadn't mentioned this prior, Citadel can bring itself back from the graveyard if an Earth Machine monster on your field is destroyed. And that is why we're going to be playing the Scrab Wyvern in our extra deck. But we don't have the Golem at the moment. A Golem is like an additional budget item that you can add if you really want to, but it's not the be-all end-all. Now on to our Disruption. 3 in with the Effect Veiler. Absolutely amazing in this format. Your opponent summons Crystron Halqifibrax and uses its effect. If you use Effect Veiler, you can negate it. If you're not running on a budget, you can play the new Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill to give you an additional control aspect against decks that special summon a lot, like Altergeist, meaning that the multi-faker would be able to stop its effect resolving on your turn. It's just something to consider. Now, a slightly controversial hand trap here is the Gamma package. Now, Gamma is a great hand trap for making sure that monsters that resolve while needing to stay on the field actually get destroyed. And this is great for also countering effects that might stop your Machina redeployment, like Ash Blossom, which is really fantastic. Speaking of redeployment, 3 copies. This card is your consistency boosting card. It has 2 effects. So you can either discard any card to add 2 Machina monsters with different names from your with each other from your deck to your hand, or you can discard a Machina card to add any 2 Machina cards with different names from your deck to the hand. So yeah, this consistency card is just perfect for the deck. 2 copies of Desires. You want those cards to end up in your hand. You want to have that sort of access to the cards you need, and we're playing a lot of 3-ofs in the deck, so normally you're not going to be banishing anything from your play sets. And finally, Machina Overdrive. This card helps you play the control game absolutely phenomenally. Now, what does it do? You can target any machine monster you control and special summon a Machina from your hand or deck with a different name and destroy the targeted monster. This is a great disruption effect, as well as being able to bring out cards like Air Raider on your opponent's turn for that additional quick effect and board setup. Having those strong defensive Pokemon that, like, most decks don't have normal summonable monsters that can just run over 2600 defense monsters. So you're really going to want to be able to do that. And also, while it's in your graveyard, you can banish it to target 3 of your machine monsters that are banished or in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck and draw a card. This sort of acts like a Pot of Avarice sort of effect for the deck, so you don't need to run things like Avarice because you're getting that recursion with this card. And it's absolutely brilliant. Now, extra deck. keeping it simple. Scrap Wyvern. Because you're normally destroying a scrap recycler with this card's effect, you can bring back the Citadel that's in your graveyard, because of course Scrap Recycler is indeed an Earth machine. Platinum Gadget helps you bring out low-level machines from your hand if you have no way of doing so, maybe extending yourself a little bit further. We have the Almirage. This card doesn't come up often, but when it does, you really like to see it. Gravity Controller. Sometimes you might have a dead monster in the extra monster zone, or you've already floodgated your opponent. You can link it off for this and then just effectively grand roll any of your opponent's monsters. Really good. 1 budget for the Link 4 Borolo Dragon. Still a fantastic card that lets you steal your opponent's monsters. Nightmares, Unicorn, Phoenix and Cerberus. Cerberus is quite useful against the Dragoma matchup coming up, because if there's a stray Mechaba on the field that you've baited out, you can just pop it with this. As well as Phoenix always being useful to clear back row. 1 Dagaris helps you unbrick, mostly. 1 Gigant X can search any level 4 or lower machine from your deck. 1 Dweller, because this really helps you floodgate your opponent out. Baguska, it's a fantastic card, and it just puts a slow halt on the game, and Machina does like to play that slow sort of grind, and then it works its way up to actually being able to destroy your opponent while swarming the field with big monsters. Tornado Dragon to deal with back row. Draco Sag, it's a rank 7, you don't really see it often, but it's fairly easy to get multiple copies of Fortress out. And then finally the Dengirsu, because you're being able to spit out level 8s a lot, and being able to go into a rank 8 that can protect any card on your field is absolutely brilliant, because your monsters destroy themselves, but it's not a mandatory thing for them to have to destroy themselves to let their effects go off. Meaning that if you can protect your monsters from destroying themselves, you basically get their effects for free. Meaning this is a staple card in the deck, in my opinion. So, in terms of side deck options, obviously you'll want to be playing cards like Dark Ruler No More, and you'll want to be playing more disruption cards. If you have the budget for it, go ham, and by all means play cards like Lightning Storm. They'll only increase your chances of victory. I tried making this as competitive as possible, but until events start up again, it's a very slow slog until that happens, and you know, it just might not happen the best, but that's everything from me today. Hope you've enjoyed the deck profile, and if you did, give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more deck profiles like this in the future. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time.